Hey, it's Acoustic Stevo, the human patriot, coming to you from the universe. Join me on my journey. Let's have some fun. Today, I'm going to be talking about natural law. That's not very, doesn't show up that well. I'm going to get better at that. In particular, the law of vibration. And I've got some other topics as well. Welcome to the Human Patriot Podcast. We are doing this live on YouTube, at least for this installment of the podcast. And how that's going to work is if anyone comes in and is in the chat, I'll be glancing over from time to time, but don't really expect me to interact much with the chat because I'm going to be going through my topics in a structured way. So if you're there, I will see you. I do appreciate the chat. So at some point, I will probably address whatever I see in there. If I have time at the end, I will maybe bring on a guest if somebody shows up and wants to talk. But I'm going to keep this around 40 minutes. So I need to get started. All right. So before I actually get into natural law, I'm just going to talk about some things and some topics of the day. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the arrest of Millie Weaver. It's right up there. Millie Weaver, number one. And I put over here on the other side, I'm getting confused here. Excuse me. What she did to get arrested. She created a documentary. She's a journalist. Yes, she's, I guess, works for InfoWars. So if that makes you tune out of what I've got to say, I'm sorry. I'm not like a huge fan of InfoWars, but I do vet their information that they put out from time to time to see if I can get some good stuff, and quite often I do. Not all the time. Sometimes it's hyperbolic, and you just kind of have to figure that out for yourself. But this documentary she made, it's been removed from YouTube. It's being re-uploaded, and it's called, I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's something to do with Shadowgate, and that's the hashtag you can find information on, as well as I put my Twitter up there because anyone that starts watching this show, I'd highly suggest to follow me on Twitter. It's at Acoustic Stevo, and I put the spelling there. It's ACOUSTICSTEVEO. So follow me. What I do with my Twitter is mostly I don't really make little comments and insights and anything with the characters. I mostly just disperse information that I find. Not everything do I believe that I disperse, but usually there's some kind of nugget of something in what I put out there that I thought was something that other people needed to see, and that's why I do it. So if you're interested in an easy way to basically get some information on the quick, just check out my Twitter from time to time, and you'll see lots of videos. I also put music up of things that I appreciate, friends on YouTube, as well as just people I come across on YouTube that I enjoy. So that being said, I am going to talk about what was disclosed in this documentary. You can find a link to it in my Twitter. I'm not 100% sure I did that last night. I think I did with a YouTube video, but I'm also going to put up a library video. And that's one thing I didn't write up there that I'm going to go write up right now. So library, because we're going to talk about that as well. All right. It's very important. So what happened was there were some whistleblowers. So what we're seeing is our government over the years, it's not just this case, have actively come after whistleblowers and prosecuted them. And journalism itself is under attack because journalism is the disbursement of who, where, when, what, why, and how, right? It's as simple as that. I took a course in journalism in college. So what we have now is that who, when, what, why how is controlled by 6 multi-conglomerate corporations that own all the mainstream media. And so anybody that watches mainstream media, you're being fed information from people that basically want to control you, mind control, and they can skew the narrative however they choose, and they're highly coordinated. Hey, Gemma. I said this earlier. I'm not going to be interacting with the chat too much because I'm just going to be putting out this video, but at the end I will address whatever you speak in there. So thanks for joining, and it's good to see you as well. So basically, our mainstream media comes from these 6 multi-conglomerate corporations that own all of the media. And so when you're getting information from them, you're getting what they want you to hear. They also have ties to the CIA. You can look into it. It's called Project Mockingbird. And what happens is these CIA programs get put into place to basically aid the people that own the media in proliferating whatever ideas they want you to see. So you never see the stories in a correct light. That who, what, when, where, why, and how is always skewed. So I would suggest to really not watch the mainstream media for actual information that you take as information. Watch it as basically a way of understanding what the mind control is. And it's as simple as that. So that, because I think it's important to understand what the mind control is, because if you don't understand what the mind control is, you're not able to talk to other people about it. You don't know what they're seeing, and you're not able to address what they're seeing. So that being said, this documentary that's been removed from YouTube called Shadowgate, put up by Millie Weaver, and she was arrested for it. And I'll get into that a little bit. It was covering how there are contractors that are hired by our government to basically collect all information on everyone and to use that, and they sell the information so that it can be used for all sorts of manipulation of propaganda in areas to figure out the best way to sway them to do the things that they want them to do. And it's actually being run at this point. She had 2 whistleblowers in this documentary who explained how they're contracted and exactly what they do. I would highly recommend looking into it. Again, if I think put it on my Twitter. It's at Acoustic Stevo. It may be taken down by now. It's been being taken down and re-uploaded. So I am going to put a library link up as well. So that's just the number one thing. I wanted to say how they came to her house and arrested her. They showed up at her house and they told her she had been indicted by a grand jury and that she was being arrested with some charges, including burglary, and I'm not really sure how, and domestic violence. So there's more to this story that I'm not really sure of. And the burglary is up in the air, but you can speculate as to what she's burgled, and that would be the information that she put out there, much like WikiLeaks and other journalists that kind of put out stuff that the government might not want you and me to see. That's kind of along those lines. The information that I guess she put out, this is speculation because it hasn't come out to exactly what she's burgled, but it's the only thing that makes sense at this point. So somehow I'm guessing that she's being charged with taking information that was owned by somebody and exposing it. So look into that for yourself. And I'm just going to stop there with that so I can keep going here. We got compliance is the next thing I want to talk about. Compliance. All right. Now, What's going on is a major compliance psyop. That's what the masks are about. And I'm not telling people not to wear a mask or anything. I wear a mask sometimes. It's usually in certain situations, like if I'm in a hospital or something. If I do go into a grocery store or something and I want to get groceries, I try to find a place that does not make me comply. And I've had success with that. So in that case, when I find a place like that, I'll just walk in and get my groceries without a mask. Yeah, I hear you. That the autism, Gemma, who's in the chat, just brought up a great point about autism and masks. I have two autistic children, and they hate the masks, and it's really something that affects their way of just interacting with their day. It just upsets them so much to have to participate in it. And the masks themselves, you know that it's a compliance thing that they're trying to get us to go along with, because they have an agenda. And why they are trying to get us all to comply to this mask thing is because they want you to do something that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? The New England Journal of Medicine put out an article not too long ago, and they kind of got some pushback, and it was about masks, and it was saying that outside of a hospital setting, masks are pretty much useless. And how you know this is a psyop is because they haven't said like what kind of mask you have to wear, and most of the masks that people wear aren't going to do anything. And it says right on the box that they're not going to do anything. Like it says it right on there. Cloth masks are not going to do anything. So how I've been interacting with the masks is this: I just won't wear one. There's a lot of things that masks do besides physical. Like if you're breathing in your own CO2, yes, there's all these, basically pushback ideas of people, surgeons have been doing it for years when they're doing surgery. There's those people do that, but they also know that what they're doing is not necessarily totally compromising their immune system, but they know that it changes the pH in their body because they're breathing in their CO2. That's just, you can't get away from that. So they do it voluntarily because they're helping people and they're doing surgery and it makes sense to do. Whereas we are told to go out and put these things over our noses and go around and we're breathing in our CO2. We're not we need for our immune systems to function properly at its highest level, which is what we want in a situation where we might have to fight off something like the coronavirus. And a lot of people successfully do fight off the coronavirus. That's another thing. The numbers have been messed with quite a bit. You can do your own research on that. So what's going on is this is actually a compliance psyop. They have agendas, and the only way they can complete their agendas is if people bow to their fear that's being installed by the corporate media and to comply to things that don't make sense. So it doesn't, thank you, Gemma. It does not make sense for people to wear a mask that does not do anything, right? But yet you can skirt the mask law by wearing a mask that does not do anything. They're not telling you a particular type that might or might not do something. They're letting anything go: a scarf, a maxi pad with some rubber bands, whatever you put. They just want you to put something on your face and comply, because it's not about the actual intent of stopping the spread of the virus. So, and there's some arguments as to why they're doing it. They point to other countries and their spread rate decreasing. There's no science to back it up, so they have to kind of grasp for straws at this point. But if you look at a lot of these other countries, there's a lot about their cultures in general that might explain this. And I'm not going to go way far into that. But it might be that it's not the mask, it's just the way the people interact in general. And you know what? It's about the spittle thing, right? You don't want spittle to be spread. Well, that makes sense if you're coughing, but what if you're not coughing? What if you're being careful? You're not talking up in people's faces. Um, I'm going to get back to the New England Journal article that I mentioned before. It said the reason why outside of a hospital setting the masks are not effective, not only was it that they don't really stop these particles or whatever, it's also that they basically it's prolonged contact with somebody that it's sick that spreads it. Like there's time frames on this. They're talking like 15 minutes, something like that at the low end. And if you're just going into a grocery store, you're getting in and out, you're not going to be getting that prolonged contact to begin with. Just wash your hands. I think the social distancing thing, maybe it can be applied with strangers that you don't know. But even if you hug your relatives and do handshakes, just wash your hands afterwards. Keep your hands off your face. There are plenty of things you can do that just to boost your immune system that would do a lot more than a mask. So that's what tells me, using my common sense, that this is all about compliance. Because if they can get us to comply to something that makes absolutely no sense, that lots of scientists and medical doctors are speaking out about and explaining how it doesn't make sense, once you get out of the mainstream media and you start doing your own research, then it starts to make sense. As you have to ask yourself, why? What's the why? That's what you always have to ask yourself whenever any of these things are going down like this. You have to say, well, why? And it's pretty apparent. Everybody's talking about it on the internet. Bill Gates is pushing this vaccine, right? And he's talking about vaccinating the world. And there's a reason why they want us to take the vaccines. And I will not take it. I would highly suggest others not to take it. Vaccines, first off, take a long time to develop. Second off, they have immunity from being sued by individuals who have gnarly repercussions. The government has actually stepped in and said, we will take on the responsibility of lawsuits for people that get harmed by vaccines. So their excuse is so that it would make it to where the manufacturers that actually make vaccines, because if they didn't do it that way, too many lawsuits would come about and people would not make vaccines, right? So I would say for people out there, learn about your immune system, learn about taking care of your body and your health. That would be the most important thing. Wash your hands, keep your hands away from your face. I just took a shower. My hands are clean. I'll probably wash them at some other point. I know I will wash them at some other point today, here real soon. So not too worried about touching my face at this point. But use common sense. Stop listening to these supposed authorities on things, because what's being blasted out through the mainstream media are their hand-selected authorities, because people that have just as much authority with their degrees and their experience and their knowledge are saying completely different things all over the internet, and it's being censored. It's being taken down. You can't even go on YouTube and say probably what I'm saying right now, because one of YouTube's policies is you got to follow the World Health Organization's guidelines for how you interact with people concerning the coronavirus. And that just shows the tyranny of this whole situation. YouTube in general, everybody knows it's run by Google, and Google has a lot of funding from our governments. It's all a huge mess. It's very apparent. So, if you do what you're comfortable with, if you want to wear a mask, wear it. If you do, what I've taken to doing is, when I am put in a situation where a mask is required for me to actually operate, I don't put it over my nose. And if the issue's pushed, I leave. Like, I just won't interact in that space. I will leave, because I want to breathe through my nose then, I can kind of understand maybe the spittle mouth thing, like especially if you are coughing or something and you don't want to be like putting stuff out there in a time like this. I'm not even 100% sure this whole coronavirus is real, to be honest with you. But just in case, to be safe, right? Um, there are certain circumstances where I'd consider wearing a mask. And I do. Like if I go into a hospital or something, and I've been in hospitals recently, I've actually been tested for the coronavirus. I took the antigen test, and I took the other one where they swab. Well, both of them they swab up in your nose, but the one that tests, I think it's PCR. It tests for the actual virus. The other one tests for the antigens, and I was negative on both. But the reason why I did that was because I take care of my grandpa, and I had come down with a fever, and allergies had really gotten to me. Right now I'm on some Allegra. Like I finally broke down. I hate taking medicines of any kind, but it's been so bad that I finally took some Allegra, and I'm feeling a lot better. But at one point, like my ears were draining and stuff, and I just I had a fever, so I had to make sure I wasn't sick. My family was concerned about it, so I had to go do it. And it's funny too, because recently in Ohio, the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, he tested positive for coronavirus one day, and then the next tested negative, and they found out it was a false positive, and a lot of that's going on with these tests. So not only do we have like these very imperfect methods of dealing with this supposed pandemic, some information points to the fact that it might not even be a pandemic when you really look at the numbers in a certain way. And I'm not even really here to argue too much about that. I just want to point out that the mask thing is about compliance, and they want to get you used to complying, and they have agendas. So the way that you deal with this is don't comply. I write on my mask as well. I write something thought-provoking. Like right now my mask says "got oxygen?" ? And I don't wear it over my nose. So when people see me, it's not normal. That it makes them think like I'm pushing that. You know what I mean? And I would suggest doing that, because if there aren't people out there that are not questioning the authority, we're going to have some major issues. Like, so if you feel like I do, that there's just a lot that doesn't need to be complied with, stop complying whenever and wherever you can, and set an example. That's the solution. Set an example. Talk to people about it. Articulate it to people. Start with maybe your friends and families to get used to it, and then you might have some combative situations there, but it's worth it, because if we don't do what we need to do to stand up to tyranny, we're going to be in a world of trouble. All right. So the tyranny is very blatant at this point. You just have to look at one day in 2020, and you can find a number of things that point towards tyranny everywhere on earth. So I'm going to move into moral relativism, and I just wanted to explain what it is. I went into Discord last night on a new server that I found. I think it was called Intellectualism, and it just piqued my curiosity, and there's some voice chats in there. So I started talking to some people, and I was talking to a young woman last night about right and wrong, right? And I started to realize, I just explained to her what right and wrong is, and that's really what moral relativism comes down to, is that she was of the opinion that right and wrong is different, and it has to do with the opinion of the person. What's right for one might not be right for the other. And that's what, in a nutshell, what moral relativism is. And it's actually a tenet of Satanism. So if it would be something to look into, if you believe that, you might want to question yourself. You definitely want to question yourself, because there is such thing as right and wrong, and it's very simple to explain. Whatever is not wrong is right, and I do mean whatever. And so therefore you have to define what is wrong. And that's very simple as well. Do not steal. That covers everything. If you steal life, that's called murder. If you steal property, that's theft. If you steal someone's security, like and come into their home or something when you're not invited, that's called trespass. You can steal the truth. That's called lying. You can steal someone's innocence by rape or molestation. And it's very simple. You don't do those things. You don't steal from another person or a group of people. You're doing right. So, I mean, there can be a lot of debate as to whether or not those rights that you do have are really good for you, or they might hurt you, or, you know, if it's going to hurt somebody else, well, then it's wrong. But, you know, you have the right, like people that take drugs, they have the right to do that. People, you know, they have to suffer the repercussions of that, because there's, you know, a thing in natural law called cause and effect. And what that means is if you take drugs, the effects that the drugs give you could totally destroy your life, but you still have the right to do it. So moral relativism is where we get laws. That's why, you know, in the United States, in Colorado, you can smoke marijuana recreationally, but in most of the other states you can't, because it's relative. They make it relative to the laws and statutes of wherever you are, but it doesn't make it immoral. So you can be arrested for something and thrown in jail and caged and imprisoned like an animal for something that is not even immoral, because you have the right to do it. And that is Satanism. And that is a part of this world's culture and every single part of this world. So I just wanted to touch on that and say, if you've never really thought about moral relativism and you don't know what it is, it's very important to understand. And it's very important to understand what right and wrong is, because not a lot of people understand what it is. And in order for us to have any effect on this world for the better, we have to take a stand on what's right and what's wrong. And we have to be clear when we speak to people about it, so that our common sense of what's right and wrong, because what I'm telling you is very clear when you just look at reality. These arguments that it might be right for one person, might be wrong that for another, they go out the window because of a thing called karma. Like, you can even test this. If you don't believe in karma, I'm not saying to believe in it, I'm saying to test it, just to look at your own life. When you start to do the right things in your life, do you start to have a better life? When you do the wrong things in your life, do you start to have a worse life? It's really easy to test. All right, so I am going to now move on to the law of vibration. Actually, before I do that, I wrote library up there, and I'm going to spend the last part of this podcast talking about the law of vibration. So before I do that, I'll just talk about library and why everybody should be getting on it, because YouTube is controlled by the dark occultists of this world. Like, straight up, the people that are trying to totally demolish the human spirit and enslave us further than we are. What library does is it puts your video content on the blockchain. And what the blockchain is, it's basically an immutable area. It can't. It's like locked in, so it can't be taken out. It's censorship. I'm not. I don't want to say proof, but definitely resist. You can migrate your whole channel, your whole YouTube channel, every video you have, and they make it very easy. So what you do is you go on library and you set up a channel, and you link it to your YouTube channel, and it takes about, I think, 2 days it took for mine to get over, and it pulls every single video on your channel. off and puts it onto library. And, it's still on YouTube. And then every video you make on YouTube, it puts it on library. And all the videos that are being taken off of YouTube, the people that know about library and BitChute, they have those videos available. So people are becoming more and more aware of the agendas and their abilities to find the information no matter what. It's becoming easier and easier because of things like BitChute and library. I don't really use BitChute a lot. It's just not my thing. And most of the time I can find whatever I want to find on YouTube because there's enough people out there re-uploading things that have gone, out of their control that they don't want you to see. And you can usually find it if you search it the right way. And one of the ways, I'll give you a little tip on this on YouTube searches. Search like last hour, day, or week with your specific term, and you'll get a lot of the videos that you're not supposed to see because somebody will have re-uploaded it and it won't have had enough time to be taken down. So that's just a little tip. All right. Hey, the earth is falling and the sky is looking for you. Thanks for being here. I'm going to now get into the law of vibration. And this is a really cool law. I'm just going to tell you what natural law is. It's a set of principles. They're also called hermetic principles. They're also called universal law. It's basically the way the universe functions. It's the laws of the universe that are inescapable. They don't basically have any type of like leeway at all. It's like they're there. They're the foundations. They're the things that are going to govern. They are the actual government. Like, government means mind control, so I hate to say it like that, but they are the actual governors of our existence, these laws. And I've talked about the first two in some of my recent videos, so go ahead and check those out. But we're on the law of vibration. I get confused when I'm looking at myself trying to point to something. Oh man, I can't do it. I'm semi-dyslexic. Law of vibration. All right. Now I'm going to read a little bit because I found a really good, my last two videos, I actually used this as the main, I guess, way that I shared the information. And it's a article on Medium called The Hermetic Revival, 7 Ancient Principles for Self-Mastery by Colton Swab. So if you want to look it up for yourself, it's a really good article. It gives a brief overview of Hermetic law, which is natural law. So I'm just going to read a little bit to you from this. And it says the main theme of this is that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. So that's all inclusive. So nothing rests. So it's the law of vibration. Everything, even, solids that we see, the particles in those solids, they still have a vibration in them. That's why there's things like music and harmonics, and you hit solid objects and vibrations start because the vibrations are there. All right. So, or you can hit like a piece of wood with another piece of wood, and if a tree falls in a forest, whatever. Just because it's a solid object doesn't mean it's not vibrating. It's just a very, very low, subtle vibration. And this is measured in known science. So it's not like something woo-woo. It's like, yeah, everything vibrates. And what I'm going to get into is energy. Everything vibrates. So spirituality, things we can't see, anything that is actually real, and spirituality in the spiritual plane is real. Everything vibrates. We have yet to discover how to interact fully to the potential with these vibrations. But one thing that can happen is they're very powerful in manifestation. So this goes back to the power of your thoughts. Your thoughts vibrate. All right. Think about that for a minute. And there's something I saw a while ago, and I believe it was on a video for the secret, and I think it's appeared on other videos as well. But there was a experiment done where ice was basically frozen in an environment with a lot of chaos, and then ice was frozen in a very peaceful, calm environment. And the crystals that formed reflected the environment they were in. That's because energy, spiritual energy, vibrates. So one, projected beauty and tranquility, and the other projected this chaotic formation in the ice. So that's just one example, and I would be very curious to actually do that experiment myself at some point. I might do that. But another thing to think about is this is why thoughts are so important. If you become a master of your own thoughts, then you've basically got a golden ticket. Like, there are a lot of things that can harm you physically, but once you understand that is not that important. Yes, you want to protect yourself physically, you want to make sure you have good nutrition, but you can't live in fear. So what it can do when you fully understand the power of thought is you won't let fear get in the way of your goals, and you'll set higher goals. And it's about vibration of energy. You'll come up to a different frequency of a being. You'll vibrate at a certain level, and you'll start to actually understand where you're vibrating. Once you understand the law of vibration, you'll be like, okay, I'm vibrating down here. I need to fix that. That's part of being a human being. We're not always vibrating up here. Sometimes we're down here, but it's recognizing it that will allow you to raise your vibration. So I'm just going to read the end of this article, the last paragraph. It's not the end of the article, but the last paragraph of this section. And it says, knowing this, Hermetics believe that even thoughts have their own rate of vibration and can be controlled like tuning an instrument to produce various results for the aim of self and environment mastery. As your understanding of vibration, frequency, harmony, and resonance increase, so too shall your power over yourself and your world. So there are things, that kind of attune to this, like meditation. I don't do a lot of meditation, like typical meditation. I do a lot of self-reflection, like being constantly present and understanding where my emotions are. Like, if I get into confrontations with people, I'm always aware of where my emotions are, because sometimes they can get out of control. And if I don't have an awareness of that, then it does me no good to actually to fix the problem. All right. So just being aware of the law of vibration can just help you in so many ways. You've heard of the ripple effect. I would say that even is a part of the law of vibration. And that can be as simple as you showing love towards another person. It can vibrate out from you to that person, and it can change something in them that then they vibrate out to other people. And that, ideas are the same way. You can put out an idea and then it resonates with people because it's true. And then somebody else says it, and pretty soon these ideas get bigger and bigger. That's the law of vibration as well. So it's just a really cool thing that the universe has blessed us with, that better understanding of it will definitely help humanity. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here. I don't want it to get over 40 minutes. Thanks, Gemma. Thanks. The earth is falling. The sky is looking for you for joining me. And until next time, Human Patriot out. Peace.